Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. Welcome to my channel. So if you're new or if you're a new subscriber, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you here and get to know you and engage you, and yeah, what fun. So today we're looking at the reading for the week of the 5th of October through the 11th of October. So last week, I thought it was interesting that so many people enjoyed seeing the whole process of the general reading. I really didn't expect that. I really didn't anticipate that that would have gone over as well as it did. So I will go ahead and switch the camera view around, and we'll go through the whole process. It's going to be entertaining this week in some respects because I'm feeling drawn to continue working with the general reading as a general reading, but also from the perspective of the Amenti Oracle, which really holds us to a very high level of personal integrity. So we take them. I like taking that message and finding the way that it influences the way that I look at or view the cards and what's coming for the following week. And I'm really loving reading all of your comments. I pulled it up right before I filmed this and realized just how far behind I actually was in responding, which I am not proud of. It's just been a very busy week and a busy time with new clients and new doula clients, and just getting all different aspects of business up and running. So it's also very exciting because it's seeing a lot of things that I've been working so hard on start to manifest. So we're going to try and read that filter and apply that filter to a reading with none other than the Tarot de Santa Muerte. So fun times. I will say before we go into that, that this deck is, I don't know how to put it. I would not say that it feels to me like the energy that I get from La Santa Muerte, but I do feel like it represents Mexican culture well. And I say that as a total non-Mexican with really extremely limited experience of Mexican culture, except what I know through friends, through research on a couple of plays that I've worked on that were Mexican and written by Mexican Americans, and so forth. But the research and work that I've done on Day of the Dead in the past gives me more of a sense of what the energy of this deck is than Santa Muerte does, if that makes any sense. So we'll be switching the camera around now and going through the first operation and the general reading. Okay, everyone, here we go. So this is the lovely box for the Tarot de Santa Muerte, which I'll put to one side. And here we have the deck. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle. I'm hoping that using my plug-in microphone headset is going to help with the sound this week. I'm very sound sensitive myself, so when the sound in a video changes drastically, it really bothers me. Okay, so I've shuffled. I'm going to go looking for our Fool. Here he is. So we're electing this Fool as our, he's our guy. He's our significator. All right, and we'll shuffle him back in. I like to shuffle before the shuffle because I feel like it just clears the cards and just prepares the space. I'll come around this way. I will say, as much as I enjoyed doing the Sharpie for this one, I don't know if you can see how much. There we go. Yeah, not great. I'm just kind of, I think I was a little heavy-handed, no pun intended, with the old Sharpie here. But I do love the color. Okay, so I'm going to cut the deck once. Yeah, maybe a second time. I don't know why. I just feel like I need to do that. So I'm allowing my intuition to just guide me a little bit there. All right, so this is technically the first operation. In which we separate these into 4 piles. So once again, and I see our camera is, there we go. So the piles are starting here, the wands, cups, swords, pentacles. So Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. So we'll start with the wands. Okay, we're not in the wands pile this week. Ah, that wasn't too bad. So the cups pile. So when we find the significator here in the cups pile, that means that the solution to whatever kind of issues or difficulties that come up against that we come up against this week are going to be found through feeling. They'll be found through feeling, emotions, and so forth. And you know, when it comes up in the cups pile, it means that family, relationships, people that we're close to, emotions, those are generally what's underlying our needs in that particular week. So as we move forward from the first operation and into the general reading, that is the entire first operation, by the way. That's all it is. So if you were going to do a reading, for example, for a client, and, you know, they tell you that the reason that they're there is because they want you to read about, oh heavens, I don't know. Let's say they want to read, they tell you that what they're there to talk to you about is their finances. Okay, their finances and work. Like, where should I go in order to earn more money? Well, you know, that's, if you do the first operation, you may come up with something completely contradictory to what they say they're there for. So let's say that they've come for a reading about finances and money, but you end up with the Fool, or sorry, with their significator, whatever that is, in the cups pile. It means that this is someone who, you know, needs to look at their feelings. They need to be more in touch with their feelings, with their body, with their heart space. What do they really want? Because if they're there to talk about money, the things that inspire them and make them feel whole, the things that fill their heart with joy, sorry, something in my throat there, those are going to be the things that, you know, that's going to be a big part of that reading. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense. At any rate, for us, it means that whatever's coming up this week is going to be to do with that. It'll be to do with our feelings and emotions. So as we go to lay out this general reading space, and forgive me if this cord gets in the way here for us. I've just got to have this microphone because I'm afraid without it I won't be very audibly heard. Because the Fool is so decidedly moving this way, this week I'm going to set up the cards going in this direction. can tell I've never done this particular reading with this particular deck, because I don't have a very good spatial sense of how it's going to lay out. And that's okay. Okay, whoops. So... interesting. Okay. So now that I've fussed fussed these cards to within an inch of their lives. Get it? An inch of their lives? No, sorry. Really bad with the puns this week. I don't know what that's about. Other than just Natalie's having fun, which can't be such a bad thing, right? Okay, so we know that the Fool is one of the element cards, and he counts as a he or they. I kind of like Fool as a they, frankly. But let's say the Fool, they count as a 3. They are an elemental card. So counting the Fool, we have 1, 2, 3. First card is the 8 of Swords. I'm going to put the Fool back down. And I've got my handy dandy bit of scrap paper here. I'm going to go ahead and write down that we have the 8 of Swords. And that leaves us with 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, nice. We have the 9 of Cups. Okay, so we're counting 9 from the 9 of Cups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow. So who is she? That's our Page of Pentacles. No, is that right? Page of Cups? Page of Cups. Page of Cups. Interesting. Came up in the cups pile, so why should we be surprised? So we have the page. Pages are worth 11, a count of 11. So no, that's wrong. Pages are a 7. Aces are 11, pages are 7. So I will count 7 from the page onward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nice. I think that's a pentacle. Yeah, it's the 9 of Pence. Okay, so from here, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, this is the Knight of Swords. Okay, so knights, kings, and queens are worth a count of 4. And when I say starting from here onward, I realized I was saying that. What I mean is that from the next card onward, we count 4. The only time that's different is when you start at the beginning with your significator. So your significator leads as the first card. After that, you start with the one following. Okay, so we have the Knight of Swords. He's worth 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have the 4 of Swords as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. We have the 10 of Cups. Sweet. I can hardly wait to see what the Amenti card is that we get. Okay, so from the 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the 7 of Cups. We have some decisions to make. Okay, and then from the 7 of Cups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 takes us back to the 4 of Swords, which we've already landed on. So the 7 of Cups is our final card. Okay, So I take this almost illegible piece of paper, illegibly written list there, and I'm going to count the 8 as the first one. Second card is 9 of Cups. Third card is our Page of Cups. 9 of Pentacles. Knight of Swords. 4 of Swords. 10 of Cups. And 7 of Cups. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards this week. Nice. I like that as a number to work with. Okay, so I've got these laid out in a fashion that feels like it's probably just about right. When I'm reading, I usually try to do that, as I've said last week. I like having them set up, and the dog is so excited because I'm standing up. He thinks something's going to happen. Thank you, Noah. I like having, oh dear, sorry about that. I like having things set up in such a way that I can see the balance, and as well as the trajectory. So I like seeing what's what's in the middle, or highlighted as being in the middle or at the peak of things, as well as where we start, where we finish, if there's any parallels between the two, and that sort of thing. Because that does tend to make things a little bit easier to interpret. So as we look at this, and before I actually do the official reading, we can see that we've got this interesting dichotomy here between the 9 of Pentacles and the Knight of Swords. Interestingly, these are 2 cards that have come up for me in the last week in readings, and have a different meaning and significance than, in some ways, I guess, than they do in the traditional RWS system. So I'm actually going to pull out the guidebook because I don't want to screw this up and get it wrong completely. But when we're looking at this 9 of Pentacles, I remembered thinking it was remarkable advice. It was to do with having things being timely. Yeah, with the 9 of Pentacles, we reach the maximum expansion thanks to long-sightedness and thorough and continual movement towards development, success, and attaining new conquests. Nevertheless, we cannot continue to expand endlessly, or we will risk being suffocated by ourselves and what we have attained. And in each of these, there is also the advice of the dead, which I love. And the advice of the dead this week is properly evaluate the limits within which you can expand, and you will manage to realize and consolidate even beyond what you can see and touch. So, yes. So this is, again, as I said, like these 2 cards came up together in a reading for me earlier this week, which is very interesting because they were pretty spot on in terms of what the reading was about, which is it was just a daily draw. But it came on a day where I was like trying to manage a lot of business. This Knight of Swords is a daredevil and very much presented as such. Let's see. It says that he has an authoritative and totally the master of himself. He is able to overcome both physical limits and those of his thoughts, ready to fight and to accept any challenge or argument. In taking action, however, he manifests his limits, which are connected to an excessive impetuosity, and if reversed, can also become inertia, anger, destructive rebellion. So the advice of the dead here for our Knight of Swords is to be rational and learn to communicate your ideas clearly and sincerely. Undertake your projects in a way that also brings vitality to others. So, when we look at the message, the dual message that takes place between, this 9 of Pentacles and the Knight of Swords, they both are talking about limits and working within your limits, not letting yourself grow and expand to the point that we can't manage what we've already managed to manifest, right? So don't go overboard and, learn to see when it's, when things are finishing and they've had their time. So that's interesting too that we're talking about limits and boundaries, and it's right here at the top of the spread. Um, so I find that fascinating, really fascinating. It's the most significant thing that stands out to me here as we launch into this, launch. We've got these swords here launching forth. There's also, a clear dichotomy here, which I love, between cups. We have swords and cups, swords and cups. The only kind of grounding, we don't even have the grounding of a major arcana. So this may be an interesting week, but it looks to me like it's going to be a very, a week that focuses very much on the way we feel about things, and balancing the head with the heart, the mind and the heart. That's very clear. We have mind, heart, heart, and then on the other side of this dichotomy here, we have mind, heart, heart again. Isn't that interesting? So we have mind, heart, mind, heart. And then in the middle, we have, earth and mind. So where we have to put the thought and the hard work in. Yeah, fascinating. Okay, so for this part of the reading, it felt a little bit more authentic, I think, and rational, in this case, to leave the cards spread out so that we can actually see them comfortably. And I could talk about them, because as I switched around and came to sit down and thought about trying to find a way to really represent reading all of these, yeah, I was a little bit floored, because I thought, I feel like these are going to make a lot more sense when you can really see the trajectory and some of the connections that exist here. So that said, we're starting off our week with the Eight of Swords. So starting Friday, it may be that there is some internal conflict coming up here. As you can see, I hope this is visible, just kind of leaning around, but that is a skull. That is a storm in the shape of a skull. So what kind of a storm is in the mind? What is it that's in the mind that we have, that's causing a sense of internal conflict? Pardon the sound. I think someone's having an external conflict outside in the alleyway. But what is it that is bringing us to that place inside of ourselves? And what are we doing? So there's a lot going on outside in the alleyway. Somebody's, I don't know, it sounds like they're lifting and dropping an entire dumpster. I'm not really sure what's happening, but anyway, I'm going to try and read above it as that crashing sounds. But yeah, so as we get into Friday, we want to look at what are the things causing internal conflict for us, and how much effort do we want to expend towards fighting that off. How much do we want to really push it away, keep it from getting close to us, stop from having to deal with it, and how much might we be willing instead to actually stop what we're doing and contemplate it, right? So that takes us from here into our Nine of Cups. So the Nine of Cups this week is fascinating, because, this is a boat on the ocean, and right now the cups are not full. They don't hold the water. The water is all out here. So when you're on a boat like this, if you've ever been there, the way that it goes, it just kind of drops up and it drops back down and so forth. And it can be very lulling. It can be very calming and relaxing. And this card, interestingly, I did have a look at the book, and I think I'll pull it out for this one because it's really very, very insightful. It isn't the usual Nine of Cups. It says the Nine of Chalices takes us far away through a slow and wave-like movement similar to that of the sea. Blah, blah, blah. Only by throwing an anchor and stopping this movement can the propositional push be altered and cause secrets, arguments, or differences to emerge. So the advice of the dead is follow with full sails and without fear. You have reached victory, but it's not yet the moment to stop and dock. So, we're looking at what are the internal conflicts, going on this week. I feel like these two really very much go together. And I feel like this is taking us Friday, possibly into Saturday. Friday, we know that these internal conflicts are there. Saturday, it's at bay. We're allowed to let it go, give it some space, give it some time, and not necessarily fill our heads with what's going on in the body. But we can keep a calm mind and a calm body in the meantime while those things are brewing. I also feel that by moving from the Eight of Swords to the Nine of Cups, we're allowed to take refuge in the body in order to calm the storm of the mind. So if there is a storm in the mind by Friday or by Saturday, you can calm the storm of the mind by allowing the wisdom of the body to take over a little bit. And then I feel as though when we're getting in towards Sunday, what we're looking at here with the Page of Cups is being able to see the situation that was grieving us on Friday somewhat with fresh eyes. The pages are wonderful at being able to bring a very youthful, childlike energy to the perspective of any particular situation. So as we get into sort of Sunday, I feel like this is the energy of that particular day. Is being able to look at it with fresh eyes, but also not becoming so distracted by the details that we lose sight of what it is that is taking our main focus, right? So we want to be able to pinpoint it, but to see it from a different perspective. Then as we enter Monday, what I notice about this entire spread is that we have two nines, and the two nines are the Nine of Cups and the Nine of Pentacles. This is the only pentacle card in our entire spread, the only one, which tells me that makes it extremely significant for us. Additionally, we had a card, our significator came up in the cups pile. So that also tells me that as we're looking at the situation that we're facing as we go into Monday, that we're going to be dealing with it from the perspective of feeling, from being in the body, from coming right out of the heart and out of the heart space. So as we saw earlier, these two cards very much go together. The realization that we've actually begun to attain something and to be able to expand and to grow. There's a lot of growth and expansion that's happened over time that's available to us in this card. So what are the things that we've put so much effort into in this time period? Maybe I feel like it's very much so over the last month, that we're finally starting to see come to fruition. Because when there is a lot that's starting to take place, that's beginning to happen, it gives us something to lose, right? When we have something to lose, there is often a storm in the teacup of the mind because we're afraid of what we have to lose. So what is it that comes up around all of this growth that creates challenges and difficulties for us? And then as we begin to examine them, how can we take a more rational approach? So how can we view it from a perspective of, thinking and being willing to take risks, but also being able to have ideas that are expressed in a way that other people have the ability to really take them in fully. You know, being able to set limits, here we have all of this expansion that takes place in the Nine of Pentacles. And the advice of the dead that we saw before is that we can't continue to expand without limits. The Knight of Swords has the wisdom to know rationally, where does the expansion need to stop? Because when we can start to identify that, then we know how we can act in such a way that it maintains our vitality, right? If we don't set limits, we lose our vitality. So it may be that what's bothering us is, the sense that maybe a project at work is growing out of hand and it feels like there's no space in your body, in your mind, etc. Your mind may be taken up with the details of all of this work and everything that has to be done. Getting a break from it over the weekend is really helpful. And then as you go into Sunday and think about the week ahead, you have the ability to see it through fresh eyes, see new details that you hadn't seen before, and to refocus on what the central issue really is, right? And that is that you can't continue to move forward and grow without there being some boundaries to it. And that by having that Knight of Swords energy there to give you rational thought and ideas for what you can do to have those boundaries, you bring a whole new sense of vitality to that situation. It's a lot, I think, like weeding a garden, right? You can't have, or trimming and paring back plants inside the garden. To have a really beautiful garden, it has to have limits, because if it grows out of control, the beauty of it is lost, right? And there's a lot, I think, too, that we can learn about that and about the way that we consume, and the way that we are with our environment as a whole. So there's that. With that in mind, and knowing that a plan, for managing things wisely and communicating about that effectively is in place, it feels to me like there's a sense of fluidity and beauty to the rest of our week. This may take up a large portion of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. As we get into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, etc., I feel like I want to look at this one and say that, it's the final nail in the coffin because that's what I see here. But this really is more of a traditional Four of Swords card, actually, in this particular deck. So it is about allowing the mind space to rest, to calm down. We can think of it that we've contained things, we've set those boundaries, we've put things in place, and so there's space for the mind to rest. And when there is space for the mind to rest, look what happens to the heart. It's transformed, it expands. It's in a space that makes the heart itself feel like home. So it brings tremendous balance to the emotions, to the feelings, to the way that we interpret the world around us, and it gives us great space. I think it also would give us tremendous compassion. And from that space, we have finally the wrap up, which is the Seven of Cups. And the Seven of Cups in this one, in this particular deck, I said, it looks like we're going to have some decisions to make this week. I think that's still the case. That's intuitively feels right. That said, I also want to really honor the intention of the deck creator, for whom the Seven of Cups is also about staying grounded and anchored while you proceed forward with a creative project, to see it from a place of hope and possibility, but at the same time, being able to stay very, very grounded and calm and relaxed as you approach it. Oh my. So it's also about being able to stay completely calm and grounded and relaxed while you approach it. So it's seeing this, seeing the newness of the project that you're working with and being able to see it from that kind of a space. So let's look at our Amenti Oracle card for this week, which I haven't yet drawn. There's its little crystal. And we'll go ahead and shuffle the deck. Oops, okay, so I've got one sticking out and one that flung itself across the room. Wow, I regard all altars with respect. Wow. I think we'll go with this one. I don't want to be tempted, although I can't resist looking. Oh, wow. Okay, we need both of these, clearly. Okay. So Amenti Oracle wants us to filter this entire reading through these two intentions. I regard all altars with respect, and I'm trustful in my relationships. We did have our card, our significator for this week came up in the Cups pile, which is very much about relationships. And yet, for me, this Nine of Pentacles is somehow to do with the altars. I'm going to just have a quick look at the book and come right back. So I didn't find anything in the guidebook that I felt was, gave us any additional insight than what seems very, very apparent at the surface with these two, or at least in a way that I feel comfortable interpreting. So, as we look at what underpins all of the things that we're looking at this week, we're dealing with relationships. And actually, I feel that both of these are to do with relationships. So as we go into the week and we negotiate, whatever underpins the situations that start with this kind of underlying, again, like mental storm, what is it in our mind that we're fighting or combating or trying to hold at bay, fears, worries, concerns, etc. When the heart is distressed, sometimes the way that we deal with that is through spinning thoughts in the mind. Calm the mind by coming back to the body. And then as we begin to re-examine things from a different place and get a sense of what the heart of the issue really is, what's at the core of this issue, I feel like that's where these two particular cards come into play. So when we think I regard all altars with respect, this card is about respecting any particular belief system, any particular altar from any faith, any religion, but I would say too, any kind of belief that someone in our lives holds that we may or may not agree with. Hold that or regard that with respect. That is the way in which we build trusting relationships. We can be trustful in relationships when we're able to be respectful of the beliefs of others. So as we go towards, resolving things, moving forward for the rest of the week, if these two principles are underpinning everything that we do, remembering that, from the Cups pile, we're dealing with our own feelings, emotions, relationships, etc. Whatever the problem is, whatever is being represented for you personally by this Nine of Pentacles and the Knight of Swords, right? This situation that's kind of growing, needs boundaries, and, placing limits and on it brings vitality to it. Even though we're coming up with something rational, in terms of our approach, something we've got to keep in mind is that it's still the heart that is underpinning all of that. So as you move forward this week, remember that respect and trust in your interactions with others is where you're going to find success in managing relationships with others. And that means with anyone. It doesn't matter if it's somebody at home, if it's somebody at work. Wow, I don't know what's happening in that alleyway, but it just continues to go on and on. I will have some respect for this person and their need to bang around in the alleyway. How about that? So, yeah. So I wish you all tremendous peace and beauty as we go into this next week of October. Again, that's from the 5th to the 11th. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye.